3 elite aliens bully a waitress. Until one human stands up with everything he has. The Interstellar Academy floated above a purple ocean, a bright ring in the sky. Crystal towers glowed under 2 distant suns. To most, it was beautiful. To Jace Rowan, stepping off the shuttle, it looked like a test he could not afford to fail. "You trained for this," he whispered. "Don't mess it up." He was the first human the Academy had accepted in 30 years. Diplomats had reminded him that one wrong move could hurt relations with the Kethri Dominion for years. The corridor ahead curved gently. Clear walls showed open sky and other floating platforms. Human envoy Jace Rowan. The voice behind him was cool and flat. Jace turned. A tall Kethri stood in the doorway. Pale blue skin, faint glowing lines, pure white eyes, dark robes. "Yes, sir," Jace said. He pressed his hand to his chest and bowed. "I am Mentor Yalvik," the alien said. "I will oversee your time at Orion. Your actions will reflect on your world." "Understood, Mentor," Jace replied. Yalvik turned and walked away. Jace followed. The central ring was full of motion. Kethri students moved along wide paths or glided on quiet platforms. Conversations dipped as Jace passed. "The Academy is a place of order," Yalvik said. "You will follow our customs. You will not interfere in matters that do not concern you." "Yes, Mentor." They crossed a narrow bridge of light. The ocean lay far below. "You will stay in the envoy quarters," Yalvik went on. "Your access is limited. Your band carries a small allowance for food." He placed a flat disc in Jace's palm. It sank into his skin and became a thin silver band. "If you are unsure," Yalvik said, "ask before you act. Kethri customs are not as relaxed as those of your people." Jace pretended not to notice the edge in his tone. "I understand," he said. They reached a quiet hall. A door shimmered open. Inside was a narrow room, bed, desk, single window. "You begin lectures tomorrow," Yalvik said. "Walk the public rings. Learn quickly." He left. Silence settled over the room. Jace set his bag down and walked to the window. The ocean spread out below. The distant city glowed on the surface. Other platforms floated in the sky. A new world, he thought. And I'm the only human up here. Sitting made his nerves worse. After a moment he stepped back into the corridor and followed the signs to the nearest public ring. He reached an open garden and slowed. Crystal trees grew from round pools. Their branches gave off a low hum. They sing louder when there are storms over the ocean. The voice came from his left. Jace turned. A Kethri woman stood by one of the trees, a tray of cups in her hands. Her skin was a softer blue than Yalvik's, with a hint of violet. Her silver eyes were fixed on him, curious but not afraid. "Sorry?" Jace asked. "The trees," she said, nodding at the branches. "Storms push energy up through the support fields. They like it. So they sing louder." "Oh," he said. "I didn't know." "Of course you didn't," she replied, but she smiled. She shifted the tray to one hand and pressed the other to her chest. "I am Lyra Kale." "Jace Rowan," he said, copying the gesture. "I know," she said. "Everyone is talking about you." "Good things, I hope," he tried. "Mostly questions," Lyra said. "Some fear. Some anger. Some hope." She nodded toward the distant platforms. One ring, far off, glowed brighter than the rest. "I work in the trade ring," she said. "At a place called the Prism Table. If you want to learn about Kethri food, come tomorrow. Evening shift. Ask for Lyra." She turned to go, then glanced back over her shoulder. "And try not to upset any guild members before then, human," she added. They do not enjoy being corrected. Jace watched her walk away between the crystal trees. And already, he could feel that the bright surface of this place did not match what lay underneath. The next evening, Jace followed the glowing walkway that led from the academy to the trade ring. This ring floated lower than the others, closer to the ocean's surface. Bright signs shimmered along its edges, showing markets, vendors, and restaurants. The Ketheri walked with purpose here, dressed in sharp lines and glowing fabrics that marked their rank. Jace blended in about as well as a bonfire in a dark room. When he reached the prism table, he paused. The entrance was a curved arch of crystal that shifted colors every few seconds. Inside, the air glowed with soft light from floating orbs. Thin streams of water rose from the floor and twisted in the air like small sculptures before falling back again. Everything felt alive. A host approached him, eyes widening slightly at the sight of a human. "Reservation?" the host asked. "I'm here for Lyra Kale," Jace said. The host's expression cooled the moment he spoke Lyra's name. "A staff contact." He motioned stiffly. "Wait." Jace stood near the entrance, aware of the attention on him. Several wealthy Ketheri sat at tall tables, their silver eyes flicking toward him with interest or irritation. Humans were rare here, and Jace felt like a walking announcement. Then Lyra appeared from behind a glowing partition, holding a small tablet and wearing a simple black service uniform. Even in plain clothing, she looked like she belonged among the crystal lights. "You came," she said, smiling. "Good. I wasn't sure you'd brave this place." "Your directions helped," Jace said. "Plus, I'm hungry." "Hungry for food or for answers?" she teased. "Both." Lyra led him through the dining hall. The wealthy patrons watched the human moving through their space, some whispering behind lifted hands. Lyra guided him to a quiet corner near the staff hall. "It's not fancy," she said, "but it's peaceful." "Perfect," he replied. She tapped her tablet, selecting a meal. "I chose safe food. Nothing that melts human bones." "That's a relief." Their conversation slid easily into stories again. Jace told her how Earth cities looked in the rain. Lyra explained how Ketheri judge rank not only by clothing but by the glow patterns in their skin. "Everyone here is climbing," she said quietly. "Always climbing. If you fall, everyone sees." Her voice dropped when she spoke about her family. "We used to be respected. But my father trusted the wrong partner. We lost everything overnight. Now I work here while others pretend they don't know me." Jace frowned. "Back home, losing money shouldn't erase who you are. Here it does." She forced a smile. "But I still hope. And besides, it pays for my academy classes." A chime echoed across the dining hall. Lyra sighed. "Duty calls. High-rank clients just arrived. I'll be back soon." Jace nodded and watched her walk toward the main area. She moved with the grace of someone determined not to show fear, even when surrounded by those who had the power to crush her future. As she approached a newly seated group, Jace noticed the shift in the room. 3 Ketheri men in sharp cobalt suits sat at the center table. Their skin glowed with bright, expensive patterns. Their chairs were higher than everyone else's, literal symbols of authority. Lyra bowed politely. The tallest man said something that made the others smirk. Lyra stiffened but nodded and walked away to fetch their drinks. Jace didn't need to hear the words to understand. The mood around that table felt wrong. Heavy. Predatory. For the rest of the meal, the 3 men's voices carried across the hall. Sharp demands. Mocking comments. Loud laughter when Lyra tried to keep up. The host ignored it. Other servers avoided the section completely. Jace watched everything. His hands tightened under the table. He came to this world to learn. To observe. To stay out of trouble. But as he watched Lyra take a deep breath and return to that table again, something in him shifted. There were rules on Orion. There were hierarchies. There were customs. But there were also lines no one should cross. Jace could already sense where this was heading. And he knew he would not sit still much longer. The morning ring of Orion was colder than the night before. Soft mist drifted between the floating platforms as Jace stepped into the prism table. Lyra had told him she worked early shifts on cycle mornings, and he wanted to surprise her with a quiet breakfast. But quiet was the last thing waiting inside. The restaurant buzzed with serious voices. Ketheri in business robes sat in tight clusters. No glowing lights or soft music, only sharp talk and fast orders. Servers moved quickly, trying not to draw attention. Jace took the same corner seat as last time. Lyra appeared moments later, carrying a tray of steaming cups. Her smile was real, but her eyes held a tired edge. "You woke up early," she said. "Wanted to try your planet's version of morning food," Jace replied. "You're brave." She placed a warm drink in front of him. "I'll bring the meal soon." She hurried back to the main floor. That was when Jace saw them. The same three men from last night. The cobalt suits. The glowing symbols of wealth. The arrogance that filled the room like smoke. They sat right in the center again, their chairs raised higher than anyone else's. As if the whole restaurant existed only to serve them. The tallest lifted a hand without even looking. "Server." Lyra went to them. Jace watched her shoulders tense. The men ordered 3 different dishes, complicated ones that took time. After she left, one of them leaned back and laughed loudly enough for the whole room to hear. When Lyra returned with the first tray, they inspected every plate as if searching for flaws. "This is wrong," the tall one said. "Take it back." "It's exactly what you asked for," Lyra replied politely. "Are you challenging me?" he said. She lowered her head and carried the tray away. A few minutes later, she brought it back, perfect, steaming, arranged neatly. "Wrong again." Back it went. This happened 4 times. Jace felt heat rise in his chest. He kept telling himself to stay seated, to stay calm, to stay diplomatic. But each time Lyra approached the table, she looked smaller. When she brought their bill, the tall man flicked a finger at it without even glancing. "No," he said. Lyra froze. "Sir, payment is." The service was poor, the second man interrupted. "We will not be paying." It followed all standard guidelines, Lyra insisted, voice shaking despite her effort to hide it. The third man, the one with sharp silver patterns across his jaw, grabbed her wrist as she reached for the bill. He didn't squeeze hard, but the message was clear. "Maybe you can repay us another way," he said with a slow, ugly smile. The room went silent. For a moment, everything in Jace stopped. And then everything in him moved. He was on his feet before he understood the decision. He crossed half the restaurant in 3 long steps, the mist from outside still clinging to his jacket. "Let go of her," Jace said. All 3 men looked up. Shock first. Then annoyance. Then cold amusement. The tall one tilted his head. "Human, this does not involve you." "It does now," Jace said. Lyra tried to pull back, but the man still held her wrist. Jace's eyes locked onto his until the man finally released her with a slow smirk. "You should sit down," the second man said. "You are far from your planet." "And far above you in height," Jace replied, refusing to break eye contact. A few servers gasped quietly. The tall man rose from his chair. Even standing, he didn't meet Jace's height. "Do you understand what we are?" he asked. His glowing patterns brightened with threat. "We are triarch merchants. Our word decides trade routes. Our credits shape policy. We could erase your little exchange program with a single call." Jace kept his voice level. "I've watched your behavior all morning. There was nothing wrong with the service. So if someone here should be embarrassed, it isn't her. A dangerous silence settled around them. Lyra whispered, "Jace, please. Don't." "I'm paying their bill," Jace said, louder now. "Bring me the total." The Triarch men stared at him with slow-burning rage. "You think covering a debt makes you heroic?" the tall one asked. "No human stands above us." "I don't need to stand above you," Jace said. "Just between you and someone you're hurting." The man with the jaw markings stepped closer, almost nose to chest with Jace. "You've made an enemy today, human." "Good," Jace replied. "At least it means you won't forget me." The three men turned sharply and walked toward the exit, leaving the bill untouched on the table. Only when the door slid shut behind them did the room breathe again. Lyra stood a few steps away, shaken, eyes wide. "Jace," she whispered, voice thin. "You don't understand. They are powerful. They could ruin your entire future here." Jace exhaled slowly, the tension still vibrating through him. "Some futures," he said, "aren't worth keeping if you have to ignore what's right." Lyra looked at him with a mix of fear, gratitude, and something deeper. She knew he had just crossed a line no outsider ever dared to cross. And she knew the consequences were coming fast. The ride back to the academy felt heavier than usual. Jace walked fast along the glowing bridge, trying to calm the tight knot in his chest. The wind brushed against the platform, carrying the faint hum of the floating engines. None of it helped. He kept hearing Lyra's voice in his head. "They could ruin your future." She wasn't exaggerating. He knew that now. When Jace arrived at his quarters, the panel beside his door flashed red before he even touched it. Summon issued, Mentor Yalvuk, immediate attendance required. So the Triarch had acted fast. He took a long breath and walked toward the administrative ring. It was quieter than usual, its long halls lined with dark glass and symbols of ancient Kethri houses. The silence made every footstep echo. Yalvuk's office door opened the moment Jace approached. "Enter." The mentor sat behind a curved black desk. His glowing white eyes showed no anger, just deep disappointment, as if Jace had personally broken something precious. "Human envoy," Yalvuk began, "I have received troubling reports." Jace stood straight. "Sir, if this is about the restaurant." "It is about the restaurant," Yalvuk cut in sharply. "You interfered in a private dispute involving respected members of the Triarch Guild. You questioned their authority. You challenged social order." "I stopped them from harassing someone," Jace said. "Isn't that part of respecting cultural ethics?" Yalvuk's eyes narrowed. "You misunderstand Kethri ethics. Order must be preserved. Hierarchy must be respected. You broke both." Jace clenched his jaw but said nothing. "Furthermore," Yalvuk continued, "you have been observed forming a close relationship with Lyra Kale, a worker of extremely low standing. This is unacceptable behavior for an envoy student." Jace felt the heat rise in his face, but he stayed calm. "My personal interactions don't violate academy rules. They violate Kethri expectations," Yalvuk replied. "And expectations matter here." A long silence stretched between them. Finally Yalvuk folded his hands. "The Triarch Guild has requested your immediate expulsion. You are to remain confined to academy grounds until the board decides." Expulsion. Diplomatic failure. Earth disappointed. Lyra left alone. Jace nodded once, tightly. "Understood." "Good," Yalvuk said. "The hearing is tomorrow at mid-cycle. Prepare yourself." Jace left the office with a hollow feeling. He didn't return to his quarters right away. He sat under one of the floating crystal trees in the academy garden and watched the ocean clouds drift far below. He didn't know how long he stayed there before a soft chime came from the path behind him. A young Kethri professor approached, dark robes, calming expression, glowing markings that flickered with caution. Envoy Rowan, he asked quietly. I am Professor Adarin Sol. May I speak with you somewhere private? Jace raised an eyebrow but nodded. They walked to a secluded alcove behind a tool storage area, shielded by thick crystal vines. Adarin lowered his voice. You are in danger. The Triarch want you gone. But not everyone agrees with them. Jace frowned. What do you mean? There are groups among the Ketheri, Adarin said, who believe the old systems must change. That our society is too strict, too cruel. You did something today that few Ketheri dare to do. You stood against someone higher than you. I just helped Lyra, Jace said. Yes, Adarin replied. And that is exactly why some of us want to help you. He glanced around, then pulled a small crystal device from his robe. You will need evidence for tomorrow's hearing, he said. Testimony. Proof of the Triarch's misuse of influence. Before Jace could respond, footsteps echoed from the path. Jace! Lyra hurried toward them, holding a thin recording chip. Her hair was slightly messy, as if she had run all the way from the trade ring. I found this, she said, breathing hard. The Prism table keeps audio logs for security. The staff helped me gather statements from others the Triarch have bullied. Jace looked at her, stunned. Lyra, you shouldn't be risking this. I'm already at the bottom, she said softly. There's nothing more they can take from me. Professor Adarin nodded approvingly. Excellent. Together, this may be enough to challenge their claims. Jace felt something shift inside him, a spark of hope. Adarin added, tomorrow will be difficult. The board is divided. Some obey the Triarch without question. Others respect truth. You must speak carefully. If you challenge them too harshly, they will paint you as a reckless human. And if I say nothing? Jace asked. Then they will erase you, Adarin said simply. The professor stepped back. Prepare yourselves. I will do what I can. He disappeared down the hall, leaving Jace and Lyra alone. Lyra touched his arm gently. I'm sorry. This is all because of me. Jace shook his head. No. This is because three powerful men think they can control everything. Her silver eyes softened. Thank you for standing up for me. No one else ever has. Jace swallowed. I'd do it again. Even if the cost was his future. In the quiet glow of the crystal trees, he realized something important. The hearing tomorrow wasn't just about him staying at the academy. It was about whether he would bow to a corrupt system. Or stand against it again. And this time, all of Orion would be watching. The main hall of Orion Academy did not look like a place for learning today. Floating seats, normally bright, had dimmed to a cold blue. Heavy banners of ancient Ketheri houses hung from the walls. The air carried a tense silence, thick enough to feel on the skin. Jace stood in the center of the room, alone on a circular platform that rose slightly above the floor. It felt like standing under a spotlight in the middle of a storm. Students whispered behind him. Staff members watched with stiff faces. Even a few workers from the Prism table had come, standing in the back with hopeful eyes. Lyra was among them. Jace saw her hands clasped together tightly, fear written across her face. But there was pride too. The tribunal board sat in a curved row above him. 7 members. Their expressions unreadable. Mentor Yalvik stood at the far right, his posture rigid and official. This special session is now open, Yalvik announced. The board will hear the charges against human envoy Jace Rowan. A tall Ketheri man stepped forward from the side. His cobalt suit glowed under the hall lights. His face held a calm arrogance that made Jace's heart tighten. It was the leader of the Triarch traders, Cyros Ven. Honored board, Cyros began, bowing with practiced grace. Yesterday, this human interfered with our business, questioned our authority, and threatened us with diplomatic action. His behavior proves humans are not ready to share spaces of influence. He paused, letting the moment sink in. He also formed an improper connection with a low-ranked worker, ignoring social laws. A wave of murmurs swept through the hall. Lyra's cheeks flushed with anger, but she stayed silent. Cyrus continued, "Such actions disgrace the Academy, insult our culture, and risk damaging relations with Earth. The Triarch Guild requests his immediate removal." He stepped back, looking satisfied, as if the matter were already settled. Mentor Yalvik nodded. "Jace Rowan, present your defense." Jace stepped forward. His voice felt shaky at first, but he forced it steady. "Honored Board, I understand your concerns. But I did not threaten the Triarch. I only stood up for someone who was being mistreated." He activated Adarin's evidence crystal. A soft glow filled the hall as recordings played. Lyra's voice. Other servers' voices. Tired. Afraid. Humiliated. The recordings made everything clear. The Triarch had been abusing their status for months. Cyrus Ven's face hardened, but he said nothing. When the final recording ended, Jace spoke again. "Where I come from, strength doesn't mean stepping on others. It means protecting people who have no power." He turned and looked directly at Lyra. The hall was silent. "I did what any decent person should do." A few students exchanged looks. Some nodded, very slightly. Before the board could respond, an older woman rose from the far left seat. Her markings glowed with pale gold. Her posture was regal, calm, almost ancient in its dignity. Jace recognized her from Lyra's stories. Elder Soren Kale. Lyra's great-aunt. Her voice was soft, but carried like a clear bell. "I have heard enough," she said. "I wish to speak to the worker involved." Lyra froze. "Lyra Kale," Elder Soren said, "step forward." Slowly, Lyra walked to the center beside Jace. Her hands shook, but her chin stayed high. The entire hall watched her. "Tell us the truth," Elder Soren said. "Not as a worker, but as a Kale." A quiet gasp rippled across the hall. Lyra swallowed. "The recordings are true. Cyrus Ven and his men treated many workers badly. They demanded inappropriate things. They never paid. We were afraid to speak because the guild controls trade." Elder Soren turned to the board. "We have become blind to our own cruelty." She looked at Cyrus with eyes like ice. "An academy that protects abusers shames itself far more than a human ever could." Cyrus stepped forward, outraged. "You dare accuse the Triarch?" "I accuse you of forgetting what honor means," Elder Soren said, cutting him off. Students whispered loudly now. Even staff shifted uneasily. Elder Soren raised her hand. "I propose all charges against Envoy Rowan be dismissed." His actions showed moral clarity, not disrespect. One by one, the board members raised their hands to vote. First the elder. Then another. Then a third. Jace held his breath. The vote reached 4. A majority. The room erupted, not in applause, but in shock, surprise, disbelief. Elder Soren spoke again, strong and clear. "The human will stay. And the conduct of the Triarch Guild will be reviewed by a new ethics council." Cyrus Ven's face twisted with fury. "This is not over, human," he hissed as he passed Jace. "You have made powerful enemies." Jace met his gaze without fear. "Good. Maybe they'll think twice next time." The hall emptied slowly. Lyra reached Jace first, her eyes bright with emotion. "You did it," she whispered. "You stood against them, and won." Jace shook his head gently. "No. We did." Behind them, Elder Soren watched silently. There was a faint smile on her lips. The storm was not over. But for the first time, Jace felt the wind shift in his favor. The sun's cycle after the tribunal felt different on Orion. The sky above the floating platform seemed brighter, and the ocean far below shimmered with soft lavender waves. Life continued as usual across the academy, yet something unseen had shifted. Jace could feel it in every hallway he walked through. For the first time since he arrived, students didn't whisper only out of fear or curiosity. Some nodded respectfully. A few even offered quiet words of support. "Courageous stand, human," one said as he passed. Another placed a hand to his chest in greeting, a gesture of respect among Ketheri. It surprised Jace, but it warmed him too. Still, trouble wasn't gone. The Triarch Guild had influence in places Jace couldn't see. Their supporters glared at him from a distance. Some professors avoided him entirely. Mentor Yalvik barely acknowledged him in the morning lesson. But Jace didn't walk alone anymore. Professor Adarin Sol approached him mid-cycle with a cautious smile. "You did well. The shift you sparked will grow, slowly but surely." "Is that why the academy feels different?" Jace asked. Adarin nodded. The board publicly recognized the evidence against the Triarch. Many staff and students feel relieved. They were tired of living under quiet fear. "And the guild?" Jace asked. "Oh, they're furious," Adarin said. "Which means you should be careful. Powerful men hate being embarrassed." Jace understood too well. Later that day, Lyra met him outside the sky lift that connected the academy to the trade ring. She looked brighter, lighter, than he had ever seen her. "The prism table changed overnight," she said, laughing softly. "Workers came early. The owner wants to break ties with the guild. Some even asked to start a staff council." "That's great," Jace said. "You deserve it." She shook her head. "No. We deserve it. The staff have been afraid for so long, now they think the academy might protect them." They walked together toward the glowing gardens. Students around them stared again, but this time the looks were curious, not judgmental. Lyra continued, "Elder Soren called for a meeting with the Prime Trader Council. She wants new rules for worker safety. She said the Kale name must mean something again." "I think she meant you," Jace replied. Lyra's eyes softened. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that." "You stood at that tribunal with more courage than I've ever seen," Jace said. "If anyone's ready, it's you." Her cheeks glowed a faint violet. As they reached the crystal trees, Elder Soren herself appeared on the path. Her posture was straight, her golden markings bright under the sky's pale light. "Envoy Rowan," she said. "Lyra." They bowed respectfully. "I came to give thanks," Elder Soren said. "You revealed a weakness in our society. One we ignored for too long." Jace shook his head. "I didn't mean to threaten your traditions." "You didn't," she said. "You reminded us that honor must serve everyone, not only the powerful." She turned to Lyra. "You carry the Kale courage. I would like you to join my household council one day." Lyra gasped quietly. "Great Aunt, you would truly welcome me back." "If you wish," Elder Soren said gently. Lyra looked down, overwhelmed. Jace squeezed her hand softly, unseen by others. After the elder left, Lyra stood silent for a long moment. "She used to hold me when I was small," Lyra whispered. "Then everything changed. Now she wants me back." "That's because you earned it," Jace said. They walked slowly through the garden paths, the crystals humming around them. "Jace," Lyra said, stopping under a glowing arch, "you've changed things here. Maybe more than you realize." "I didn't plan any of this," he replied honestly. "I only wanted to do the right thing." "That's what makes it powerful," she said. A soft wind moved around them, lifting Lyra's hair. The two suns dipped lower in the sky, painting the platforms in warm colors. For a moment, the world felt calm again. But Jace sensed more storm clouds in the distance. If the Triarch want revenge, he said quietly, they'll find ways. Lyra nodded. They won't forget what you did. But neither will the people you helped. She stepped closer, eyes warm. And you won't face anything alone. Not anymore. Jace's chest tightened with a feeling he refused to name yet. Then whatever comes next, he said, we'll handle it together. The hum of the academy grew louder as night approached, signaling the start of a new cycle. Change was still fragile, still uncertain, but it had begun. And for the first time, the people of Orion were watching a human not with fear or suspicion, but with hope. 6 months passed like a quiet shift in seasons. Little by little, Orion changed. What began with one argument in a restaurant grew into something much larger, something no one on the academy rings could ignore. Trade rules were reviewed. Worker protection laws were drafted. And whispers of reform drifted through the floating city like a fresh breeze. Some Ketheri resisted, of course. But many felt relieved, even hopeful. And at the center of all this change stood two people who were never meant to cross paths. Jace Rowan adjusted the collar of his new uniform as he stepped out of his quarters. The fabric was dark with silver lining, a diplomatic suit from Earth. He was no longer just an exchange student. He had been appointed Earth's official cultural liaison to the Ketheri Dominion. A responsibility he once feared now felt like a path he had earned. Lyra waited for him outside the lift. She wore a graceful dress blending Ketheri curves with simple Earth design. Her skin markings glowed softly, reflecting pride rather than fear. You clean up nicely, she said, teasing him with a warm smile. You make this whole platform look dull, Jace replied. She tried not to blush, but the violet tint in her cheeks betrayed her. They stepped onto the platform walkway. The prism table, once a place shadowed by the Triarch, now gleamed with new life. Banners showing symbols of unity hung outside. Inside, the staff worked together as equal partners. And tonight, the floating restaurant had become something even more important. A meeting place. Earth representatives, academy leaders, Ketheri council members, and workers who once had no voice were all gathered under the same roof. A sight that would have seemed impossible half a year ago. As Jace and Lyra entered, the room quieted briefly. Not in fear. Not in judgment. But in recognition. Ambassador Hale from Earth shook Jace's hand. You've done remarkable work here, Rowan. Earth owes you much. Elder Soren approached next, her golden markings shining. Orion owes him as well, she said. His choices forced us to open our eyes. Jace shook his head. I didn't do it alone. Elder Soren smiled. A truth worth remembering. Music began to rise across the hall, soft tones from crystal instruments. Food from both worlds filled the long tables. Voices blurred together as barriers dissolved. Jace and Lyra stood near the balcony rail, looking out at the glowing rings over the lavender sea. The twin suns were sinking behind the horizon, tinting the sky with gold and violet. You ever think we'd get here? Lyra asked. No, Jace replied honestly. I never expected to change anything. I just wanted to understand this place. And instead, she said softly, you helped us understand ourselves. He turned toward her. We did it together. You were brave long before I showed up. She looked down, touched. Maybe. But you reminded me I didn't have to stay silent. Their fingers intertwined, her cool touch meeting his warm one. A symbol of two worlds learning to meet in the middle. After a moment, Lyra nodded toward a new plaque mounted beside the entrance. Jace hadn't seen it before. Carved into the crystal were simple words. Change begins when even one person refuses to look away. Jace exhaled slowly. That's more credit than I deserve. Lyra shook her head gently. No. It's exactly right. Inside the hall, applause rose as Earth and Ketheri leaders signed a new cultural agreement, an official commitment to fairness, cooperation, and open exchange. The first of its kind. Lyra leaned against the balcony rail beside him. What happens now? Jace looked over the endless sea of floating platforms, glowing bridges, and rising lights. Orion was alive with possibility. Now, he said with a small smile. We build something better. Humans and Ketheri together. Ambitious, she teased. It's what humans do, he replied. We dream forward. A soft wind rose from the ocean below, carrying the faint hum of the Academy engines. For a moment, the world seemed perfectly balanced. Jace placed an arm around Lyra, and she leaned into him. We're not finished, he said softly. This is only the first step. She nodded. Then take it with me. And as the two suns dipped behind the horizon, Jace Rowan realized that the greatest strength humanity brought to the stars wasn't technology, bravery, or even cleverness. It was the ability to see someone suffering and choose to stand between them and the darkness. Even if the whole world stood on the other side.